if you don't get it, then get the out of Philly.
Castellanos, high fly ball, way back.
In from this side, who else? That baby chop.
Here's McConnell, can he get it off? Yes! Fumbles the football and the Eagles have it.
Jared McKinney making it rain.
Wayne Simmons wins it for Philadelphia.
Long drive. This game is over.
All right, we are back here today with another episode of Philly Talk, and I'm just going to be honest, probably going to be a short one, not a whole lot to talk about, especially when it comes to all the other Philly teams other than the Eagles right now, because they're not really doing much. Sixers, they're like trying to climb their way back up. They're still many games under 500. The Flyers are 500 with 4 ties as well. They have a game today against the Blue Jackets, but all the other teams, the Sixers aren't doing too much. And the Phillies, they went out and made a signing. They went out and signed Jordan Romano, sort of a 1-year prove-it Flyer deal. It was funny because my friend had saw, he's the one that told me, I didn't get the notification. He's the one that told me. He was like, oh, look, the Phillies are signing this guy, Jordan Romano, And I was like, I kind of didn't seem excited. He was like, how come you're not excited? And he brought up the fact that he was a former All-Star, I believe. And I was like, who is he an All-Star with? And he was like, the Blue Jays. And I'm just like, all right, man, here's the thing you got to understand, since, he doesn't follow baseball that closely. I'm like, every team gets an All-Star. So it's not always indicative of the player, And he was like, come on, man, the All-Star is still the best player. And I was like, oh, well, Elias Diaz was the All-Star for the Rockies last year, I believe. And he got cut from the team, and he's not even with the team anymore. So it's like, just because they're an All-Star doesn't mean much. And then you go and look, Philly fans, if they don't know about Jordan Romano, they go and look. And, oh, look at that. He was pretty much injured this year, was limited to 15 appearances due to injury, and posted a 6.59 ERA. But in 184 games, the 3 seasons prior, had an average of a 2.37 ERA, and I forget how many Ks per night. I think it's 11 or something like that. So you see some upside, and you look at last year and just think, oh, injuries, and this is the Phillies' way of being like, hey, if we can get him to bounce back from the injuries, we got ourselves a good piece, But I don't know. I mean, maybe, because you look at some of the, pitchers they've taken on in the past and things have worked out well. So, but the thing is, it's not anything too crazy. The Phillies have been really quiet despite all these rumors of a shakeup, despite how the season ended. And a lot of us, including myself, very emotional fans, were just fully expecting a reset, a retool and all that, and really nothing's out there because of, the market's not really, the market in terms of what the Phillies need and how much they're willing to spend isn't really out there, because there's some good pieces, but it's all about, are the Phillies willing to spend, and it's not looking like it, which I don't blame them too much due to the contracts that they have themselves locked into right now. I wouldn't be surprised if next year they were more sort of inclined to, to spend, when you more than likely get JT's contract off the books. I believe next year is when JT's a free agent, I believe. Is there a way to look at that? I always forget. Where do you check stuff like that? But, I think it's salaries. Here we go. Yeah. Next year, last year of his contract, so you free up about $23 million there. Because unless JT has a bounce back year and you have faith that what will be however many years you sign him to, but 34-year-old and then looking past that catcher is going to be able to play still the same amount of games at that position, at that level, more than likely coming off the books. And I forget what other sort of what the contracts for the Phillies are looking like as well, in terms of who else is coming off of the books after this year, I think Schwarber has 2 more years. I think Castellanos has 2 more years. I forget. Taiwan definitely, I think, has like 3 years left. So, but with 23 million coming off the books, that's a lot more. That's a lot more that you can use to spend. Whereas this year you're still tied into a lot of those contracts. Let's see. So Strom signed that extension, yeah. So JT's up next year. Kyle Schwarber's up next year. Rangers due for like an extension soon. Man, so yeah, wait, Schwarber is up next year. That's kind of crazy. I mean, the way Schwarber produces, you hope you can get him back. But also, if you want to open that DH for more sort of lineup versatility, I wouldn't be too surprised, especially with some of the prospects coming up, and you're trying to think, well, either Turner or Harper's gonna. Well, Harper, since he plays first and it's not that taxing, I think they'll be fine. But like more so, like if Turner's really slowing down on the defensive side to the point where you can't really play him at short, and let's say Stott becomes your guy at second, and you don't trade him, you keep him, and he's the guy at second, and you have a prospect like Aiden Miller coming up, and let's say they get someone else for third base, if Bohm stays, it's like maybe you want to open up the possibility of Trey Turner DHing, so it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, that is 23 million and 19 million, I believe, for Schwarber, or like 20 million. I forget what next year's, but that would be coming off the books. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if next year, getting back to the original point of this, if that's the year that they decide to go all in, or not all in, but like decide to sign some like bigger names and free agents. Because there's some names, I forget, I think, did Vladdy sign a contract? I don't remember. I mean, not that I'm like saying that Vladdy would come to Philly, but like, just saying like some of the names that are out there would be like Vladdy is one of the big names. Who else would be technically Kyle Tucker, I believe. Dylan Cease, Zach Gallen. This is obviously just projected. Like, this is not talking about like if extensions happen. Like, I'm just looking at the MLB site of what they have here. Dylan Cease, Zach Gallen, Michael King. Some pretty interesting names here. Even in the closing spots, there's some pretty interesting names. But yeah, main headliners are Vlad and Kyle Tucker. So maybe that's what they're looking at and hoping that no extensions get signed with some of those guys. I don't know, but they haven't really done much. Obviously there's the elephant in the room, and that is Juan Soto signing with the Mets. Worst possible outcome for any fan of a team in the NL East. That is not what you wanted to see. But also, I don't care if you look at me as a hater. I don't care if you look at me as biased. I don't care if you think it's just me coping at the fact. I mean, to be honest, I didn't even really want Juan Soto to the Mets. I didn't want him to the Mets, but I didn't want him really with the Phillies either, because, I kind of voiced it like throughout the years from from the moment I started doing it. Like, I kind of voiced it that I didn't really want Soto just because it doesn't seem like a fit over here in Philly. I mean, I know he has a bunch of guys that he knew from his years on the Nationals, like Trey Turner, like a Bryce Harper, but my thing is, what's it called? My one thing has always been the defense. This is already a team, especially in the outfield, that doesn't necessarily have the best defenders outside of Johan Rojas and, Marsh out in the left, But it's like, got Castellanos out there, the times when we would have Schwarber play left, So it's like, I wasn't necessarily a fan of his defense. I can 100% admit that his offensive abilities are amazing. That guy can easily put the ball in play. He's an on-base machine. He got the power, So he can work really well. But, it's like I said Like I think it was the year-end video where I was like, or not the year-end video, but the season-end video where I was like, okay, but how does one guy shape the rest of, like, how does he affect it? You know, because it's like people looked at Juan Soto as this, like, you know, miracle solution to the Phillies, but like I was saying, it's like, okay, but how does signing Juan Soto stop Trey Turner from swinging at pitches that are like 5 feet off the plate? You know, how does Juan Soto stop the bottom of the lineup, like JT Realmuto going 0 for, like, what was it, like 19 or something in the series against the Mets? How does signing one guy solve that? You know, like, the issue isn't necessarily the offense, it's the players and their tendencies, especially come playoff time. You know, like, I don't, like, we as Philly fans see it throughout the season, but it's like, I think Philly fans can agree that, like, come postseason, it's like those issues just for whatever reason decide to ramp up. Like, in the postseason, that's when all of a sudden they want to start, you know, chasing a lot of these pitches. And, you know, I think a lot of it is due to the previous success of the previous 2 years, you know, where it's like they look at all the success they had, you know, and it's like they want to try and repeat that formula without seeing the flaws that came with it, especially like how it ended. You know, it's like, keep looking, you got to focus on the fact that how things ended when you were just doing such offensive strategies of, you know, just swinging for the fences and trying to get those, you know, moments of the crowd going crazy for your big time moment. You know, in the postseason, it's like they, like, I don't know, it's very frustrating. I don't want to get into the Phillies postseason stuff because it just frustrates me anytime I talk about it, even though I'd like to think I've moved on. But yeah, so, and then plus the amount of money, you know, like I've always said, hey, if the players want to go get their bag, go ahead. It's the owner's money, not any of the fans, you know. But it's like, I don't know, me personally, that contract is insane to be the highest paid player in all of sports. To get that much money to beat out Shohei Ohtani is kind of crazy to me. Like I told my dad, you know, with Ohtani, the contract makes sense because it's basically two contracts. It's one. In one, you're paying for Shohei the pitcher and Shohei the hitter, you know. So kind of makes sense to see such a large contract like that. But for a guy like Soto, who isn't that great defensively, you know, isn't necessarily gonna be how do I want to put this? Isn't necessarily gonna be like, I don't really know the way to put this, but basically, like I'm saying, you know, it's kind of hard to justify a contract like that when really it doesn't have man, I don't even know what the way I'm trying to put it is, but it's like you're kind of just paying that for his offense and nothing else, because the guy isn't that great defensively. You know, he's not a two-way player, so he's not pitching for you. He has a crazy good on-base percentage, but it's not like he's that crazy of a base runner, you know. Last year with the Yankees, he only had 7 stolen bases, caught stealing 4 times, you know. So it's like, it's not like you're paying for a guy who's crazy good on the bases, you know. Again, like, for Shohei Ohtani, it makes sense when the guy's out there, you know, hopefully going to get back to pitching for you, and on the offensive side, to make up for the fact that he isn't playing defense, you know, when he wasn't pitching. The guy was out here hitting 50 home runs and stealing 50 bases, you know. So, like, it makes sense signing for that contract, whereas Juan Soto, it's like, you're paying for one thing and, you know, one of the best hitters, obviously, you know, very patient guy, doesn't strike out a ton. You know, like I said, very good averages on base percentage, especially last year, 419 on base, 569 slugging, 989 OPS for you, 7.9 WAR player with his bad defense, you know. So it's not anything like, it's not like saying that it's a bad signing, you know. But I just, to me personally, I just look at it, I'm like, I don't know how well I could justify giving out a contract that large, where, hey, get your money, you know. But that's all from the MLB side, and I took almost like 15 minutes to talk about it, even though I said this episode was probably going to be a bit shorter. Leave that to me to always yap on. But looking at the rest of the NFL, the Bengals-Cowboys game yesterday, pretty crazy stuff. Almost want to feel bad for the Cowboys, but don't. Micah Parsons walked off, angry at the fact of what happened. Pretty crazy stuff. The Lions beat the Packers in a close one on Thursday night. Pretty crazy stuff. Lions are looking like the team to beat. Anything else? The Vikings are breathing down their necks, though. 42-21 against the Falcons was pretty crazy. Sam Darnold went off for 5 touchdowns. Looking pretty crazy. The Saints-Giants game came on after the Eagles-Panthers, and it was pretty interesting of a game to watch. I don't want it to make it sound like a bad thing, I hope he heals up, because Derek Carr looked to have injured his hand pretty badly. But I told my friends, I saw him, I feel bad for the injury, and I feel bad for having this mindset, especially because I know the NFC South is always a lot closer than it seems because of their records, but it's it's kind of a meaningless game against the Giants, and he did that dive, and I was just why would you do that, but hey, playing with a lot of passion, playing, trying to, I don't even know who's leading. The Bucks at 7-6, so I mean it technically still is a close race for anyone in the South, but I just thought, man, that was a pretty crazy play to make. Other than that, nothing too crazy. The Bills-Rams game was pretty crazy. The Bills lose that one 44-42. Josh Allen went pretty crazy. It's kind of tough to deny Josh Allen, being in MVP conversations and being deserving of the MVP. I know obviously I have my bias towards Saquon, but I also have my bias towards the MVP as a whole, because for years now I've been on the side that it shouldn't just be a quarterback award. It's very frustrating that it's just a quarterback award to me, and I wish more position players and defensive players would be in the how do you want to put it, in the running for it. It kind of frustrates me that they're just so brushed off, and the thing that frustrates me is when people, I've said in the past, when people are like, oh well, you can't give it to Saquon, you can't give it to Derrick Henry, this and that, because they're not they're not putting up historic seasons in the sense of they're breaking records and all that, and they're not doing anything too crazy, this and that, and yet we're looking at a season where people want Josh Allen to be the MVP, and he isn't leading in many of the quarterback stats. Joe Burrow has a lot of them. Lamar's leading in passer rating. Obviously Josh got the interceptions down, which was a big thing for him. But yeah, it's Lamar and Burrow are kind of leading in a lot of the different stats, and even advanced stats. And yet, people are just, talking about Josh Allen MVP, which again, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I'm not saying that he isn't in the running. But, just kind of frustrates me that people are so willing to look past and be like, oh, Allen deserves it because, he's doing this and that. And he's been doing some pretty crazy stuff. But it's you mention other positions and, oh, well, they're not breaking any records, Cooper Kupp got Triple Crown, and people were still no, he can't be MVP because he didn't break the receiving record or whatever, or didn't do this or that, he wasn't leading in this or that, and it's yet for the quarterbacks, we're just so willing to give it to a lot of these guys, and it just kind of frustrates me, it kind of frustrates me looking at it. I mean, it's not to say that he isn't there, but in terms of yardage, Josh Allen is right there outside the top 10 with 3,000. Then again, I don't know if this site that I'm looking at is updated right now, but as of right now, the stats I'm looking at, he's outside top 11, which is not to say that just because you're top 10 in passing yards, you should be there, because I mean, Kirk Cousins is here, Geno Smith is here, so it's not like I'm saying those guys are more deserving. But it's just like, I don't know, when you're not leading in a lot of the stats, and that's the same argument you're using for other position players, and you know, it's not like he's having a crazy season stat wise in passing, in the passing area, because he's doing some pretty crazy stuff in the rushing area. Josh Allen's been going off with a lot of those rushing touchdowns. A lot of the games he's been having are crazy, but I don't know. I'm just trying to use the same logic that I've seen people use against players of the past, from Derrick Henry, from Cooper Kupp, from J.J. Watt, from Myles Garrett, Christian McCaffrey, guys that, people were saying should be in MVP conversations for the stuff they were doing. Trying to use the same sort of logic here with Josh Allen, and it's just like, I don't know. Maybe it's just my bias. Maybe I don't know ball, but that's just kind of how I feel, where I'm just like, I don't know, he's not doing anything too crazy, But we're already at the 20-minute mark over here, so let's just get straight into it with the Panthers game. Not a whole lot to talk about. Just kind of very frustrated with this game. They should have just played a lot better on both sides. They had a lot of penalties, which, some weren't the best penalties called in them, but still got to be more disciplined. Like I said, very poor play on both sides a lot of the time, especially keeping things close with the Panthers, who, yes, they've had close games with like the Bucks and the Chiefs, but still it's like you shouldn't have things close with them. I do have to show respect. Commentary mentioned it a lot. The Panthers were playing risky because, what did they have to lose? So they were going out there doing stuff on fourth down. They were making crazy plays because it's like, what do they have to lose with their record? It's like a win or loss here doesn't really matter to them. So they're just going to go out and try a lot of different things. Rush defense wasn't the best. Chuba got 92 yards on 26 attempts, mainly because they had no other running backs, so, but still they really struggled. They let Adam Thielen go off for 102 yards. So like I said, it wasn't the best games on both sides. And, Jalen Hurts, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns. Serviceable day, took some pretty bad sacks, 4 sacks on the day, had a rushing touchdown as well. Saquon, 124 yards on 20 attempts. Broke Shady's record in 13 games, is pretty crazy. A.J. Brown, 4 catches, 43 yards. Devontae Smith, 4 catches, 37 yards, longest being the 27. Devontae and Grant Calcaterra had touchdowns. Defensively, Zach Bond had a sack and no one else. Bond and Dean had a lot of tackles. Jalen Carter was doing pretty great stuff in this game too, but yeah, all I have to really say is disappointing game. Wasn't real happy with their play. Can't believe the ref was standing right there and missed that face mask. Was completely unbelievable. Darius Slay, man of the thumbnail, because I didn't know who else to put, has a big play at the end. But yeah, very disappointed in this team with the way they played. Very disappointed in the media once again sparking things up, because they just love their rumors. They just love making things into bigger issues than they are and misreading things. And of course, I'm talking about the whole AJ Brown stuff. Oh, AJ Brown shouldn't go on interviews and saying that stuff. AJ Brown is a diva, this and that. No, AJ Brown is a number 1 receiver for the team, is one of the best receivers in the league. He has every right to call into question the issues that are happening, and so does Devontae Smith, and so does Dallas Goedert and Grant Calcaterra and every receiver on that team, because the way they played this game was very frustrating passing wise, where so many people were being missed on plays, especially AJ. This offense only 191 yards passing for Hurts. This is a Panthers team we're talking about, and yet they looked like they were scared to pass the ball. They looked like they just wanted to rely on Saquon the entire time. You have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith as your wide receiver 1 and 2, and you're looking afraid to pass the ball. It's like Hurts got the interception thing. He's had less turnovers, which you're happy with, but it's like it's come at a cost, and the cost is he's not passing as much. He looks very much afraid to pass at times, to make certain throws. Seems very afraid to launch things down the field to AJ and let him do the job of trying to go up and get it. Just seems like he has that whole turnover thing in the back of his mind. A lot of the routes they were running weren't that great. Like I think it was like a 3rd and long or a 2nd and long, I don't remember. And they tried to do like I think it was like was it 3rd and 17 or 2nd and 17? I don't know. They like, it was like some type of yardage, like long yardage. And they ran a curl route, and they ran like a double curl route almost, I think. And I was just like, what are you doing? You know, you need big time yardage. You have Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. Why are you not utilizing them? AJ was open so many times, and yet people want to make it seem like he's a diva because, oh, well, you still won the game. Yeah, they won a game terribly. This isn't a win you should be proud of. You know, this is a terrible win. I don't know why anyone would look at this win and be proud of the fact that they barely scraped out of there with a win against the Carolina Panthers, you know, who have been struggling all season. You know, I just don't get it. How do you look at this and think this is a good win? This is the way I'll put it. How do you look at this win and confidently say, yeah, after a win like that, I believe we're one of the top teams in the NFC. I believe we could take on Detroit. I believe we could take on the Vikings. I believe we can take on all the other teams. It's like, no, this isn't a confident win. Maybe you can say that after the win against the Ravens, where you can be like, yeah, I think we can take on the Lions. I think we can do this and that. But a close win against the Panthers like this, with how terribly they played, this is the type of win that we saw last season. You know, these are the type of wins we would see where they barely scrape by. And again, like how I was saying all last season, don't let that record deceive you. This team is worse than that record shows. I'm not saying that for this team. You know, a lot of these previous wins, even if they grinded them out, they still looked good in them. But this is not one of those wins where it was a grind out victory and you were like, yeah, I'm proud of that win. It's like, no. I was very disappointed watching this game. I was very disappointed in a lot of the play calling on both sides. And I was just overall disappointed in the offenses. You know, obviously Saquon went off, so nothing too angry for him. But it's like the rest of the team, it's like, how this has been an issue all season. How are you not utilizing a lot of these guys more? You know, it's very frustrating to watch, very frustrating. And you just hope they can get it together, you know, because, you know, AJ Brown shouldn't be getting his first target, in the second quarter, the second half? I don't even remember when it was, you know. AJ should be getting, and I get it. Oh, this is the issue that happens when you have all these pieces. You have too many mouths to feed. It's not an issue that you have too many mouths to feed. It's just you're not utilizing those. You know, you're not utilizing those players properly. You know, AJ should be getting more than 4 targets a game. Devontae Smith should be getting more than 6 targets a game. We only had 21 pass attempts and 20 rushing attempts for Saquon himself. Pretty even game plan. You know, you can still like. We're not saying to fully commit to passing, but it's like you have to mix things up in order, you know, to really help out Saquon. You got to be able to mix things up and give him, you know, breaks so that you throw the defense off a bit. I don't mind the even calling, but it's just frustrating to watch, you know, AJ and Devontae not really being used to their full capacity. So that's just all I'm hoping for improvement with this team. Next week we have the Steelers. Should be a pretty fun game. Should be an interesting one. Don't really know what to think. This is going to be very much like the Ravens game, where it can really go either way, and it can be very telling of how our future as a team is going to look. Looking over here, past couple of matchups have been pretty even and pretty back and forth. Obviously 2 seasons ago was the AJ Brown game, 3 touchdowns against Steelers, beat them 35-13. Before that, in 2020, Steelers beat us. 2016, we beat them. 2012, they beat us. 2008. This is just showing the last 5 matchups. So it's pretty interesting to see if we just kind of trade wins back and forth. So if you follow that pattern, Pittsburgh should win, but, you know, hoping we could get a win against them. Should be a pretty fun matchup, like I said, but just hoping for a ton more improvement with this team.